All right, good afternoon. My name is Eric Corthell. Welcome to the Ohio Housing Finance Agency's webinar on access to DevCo inspection and how to complete audit responses. DevCo inspection is OHFA's new software that's used by the auditors to complete inspections, send reports, and close out the audit. Today we're going to cover how to access the EHS forms and compliance audit reports, also known as the CAR. You'll hear that word a lot, so don't get confused when we ask if you've got your CAR. How to submit corrections for the findings listed in these documents, and if time permits, what the report looks like when the analyst closes out the review. As a reminder, when using any part of DevCo inspection, please use Google Chrome. Don't use Internet Explorer, Edge, which a lot of you probably don't even know what Edge is, but are using it. If you have Windows 10, it looks just like Internet Explorer, but it's actually Edge, and it causes even more issues because the inspection software works almost exactly as it's supposed to in Edge, but not quite. So please make sure that you always use Chrome. Hopefully, as we're going through the information, a lot of your questions will be answered. If your questions are not answered during the session, you can always submit questions to the Compliance and DevCo Help Desk for assistance. We will stop periodically throughout this presentation to answer any questions that you guys put up there. We'll kind of do it in sessions. So if you put a question in and it's not answered right away, don't worry, we'll be getting to it shortly. Before we dive into things, we would like to get a show of hands on who has already been in DevCo inspection. So if you've already been in and looked around and can do some things, please show a hand. Okay, so kind of looks like not a whole lot of people have been in it yet. And that's fine, that's why we're here today. All right, and another question. Is there anyone that hasn't registered in DevCo that's on today that will need to be viewing or responding to an audit? Not in DevCo at all. Okay, so a few of you. All right, and then one more question before we start. A show of hands if you know someone that isn't joining today that doesn't have access to DevCo. Okay, so a small percentage there as well. Okay, so being that we do have a handful of people that are not in DevCo by any means at all, I think what we're going to do is we're going to start out talking about how to register. This really only takes a second, so please don't phase out if you've already done this. So in order to register in DevCo, the first thing that you're going to want to do, the easiest way to get there is go to our website, ohiohome.org. and find the DevCo login page. When you click that, it's going to take you here. And so it's asking for a username and password. Right next to it is a new user and register here. Okay, I'm sorry, one second here quick. It sounds like maybe there's still some issues with everybody being able to hear us. Okay, no, I think we're good. Started about 1 or 5. Okay, so once you click the register button, it's going to come in here, and we're just going to go ahead and register me real quick. I miss this one every time. This is where you're actually asking for an email, not the username. I feel like I have to put in twice. And then you can choose your own password here as well. And it does have to have it's got to be 8 characters. You need to have a number and a special character. And if you don't, it'll let you know. And evidently, I can't type. Okay, and your organization code, if you don't have that, you can put a DevCo help desk ticket in, and we can get that for you. And once you put that in, you can load it. Now, if your organization is not in and registered, you can click here and it'll pop up and you can put all of your information in that way. So once you have that, then you want to come down here to your access type. And depending on the type of access that you need, you're going to want to click one, if not all 3 of these.
The claims feature is used by the development side. So for compliance, most likely you'll need the top one.
So we're going to go with managing your organization and the annual owner certification. Okay, and then the next thing that you're going to need to know is what award number or award numbers that you need to have your access associated with. And again, hopefully you know this. If for some reason you don't, you can always put a help desk ticket in. And I'll show you how to get to the help desk option here in just a minute as well. So we're going to add that award number and see if you have 2. You can add them like that. Make sure that you click add after each one. Most of the time, I usually type something in here and then click next and don't understand why it's not moving forward. Just because I didn't add it. Next, you need to choose a role. The majority of the time, it's going to be primary manager, primary owner. And again, make sure that you click add. And then you get here, just kind of review it one more time, make sure that everything is correct. And then when you hit submit, it puts it through. And now, one of the things that you need to understand is after you are done registering, it is usually, it's not necessarily anybody here at OHFA that needs to do anything, but it's actually going to be a manager or an owner over on your side that controls the access to DevCo, and they will actually be the person going in and registering or approving you. And that should, they will also receive an email letting them know that somebody has requested access. But to expedite things, you might just want to reach out to them as well. Okay, so that is registering. We are going to move on to how to log into the DevCo inspection application now. One thing that you do want to know, if you use a virtual desktop, or some people call it like remote access, something such as Citrix, you will not be able to use this method to go in. So if you do use Citrix or any other type of remote access, reach out to me through the DevCo help desk. Let us know that that's something that you use, and we'll give you separate access in order to get there. But for the majority of people, what you're going to do is, now that we've registered in DevCo, we're going to go and log in. And once you log in, it takes you to this screen, which I think most of you are very familiar with. But rather than going into tenant income owner certification, as you would normally do, we are going to go up here to this app screen. And when you click on that, I think most will only see these two. You're going to click on DevCo inspection. And that brings you in. And here you have both the communications tab, and this is going to show you any kind of communication that has been sent out to you already in regards to your audits, any kind of questions, things like that. And if you do have something here, you should have also received an email letting you know that there is a notification. Please do, in regards to emails, if you believe that you should be receiving notification of a car or anything like that, and you don't see an email, please make sure and check your spam and your junk mail. There is occasions where that's where these emails are going to, and you'll want to go in there and make special permissions to make sure that they stop going into your spam mail. So when you come in, you first are going to be looking at communication. And what most people are going to be looking for, however, are the reports that you have. So when you click on the reports, it will show you any of the cars that you have for any of your projects that are waiting for you and have been sent out. So in regards to accessing your car, then, there's two different ways that you can go about it. As I said, you will receive an email, and that email is going to look like this. And it's going to let you know that the property contact has been sent and that it is a car for Woodland Run. So you would be able to either click on this, and when you click on that, it's going to take you directly to your car. The other thing that you can do, because I know that there's a lot of you out there that get a little bit of paranoid when you know that you have an audit coming through, and you are going to log in every single day and open this up and see if you have any audits for you. I know you're out there. I've spoken to you already. So you can log in, go to reports, and see if you have anything here, and you click on it to access it, or you're able to click on this link in the email, and that will take you directly there as well. All right. And with that, I am going to hand the controls over to Rachel, and Rachel is going to show you what to do once you have the car.
Oh, we're actually going to take a quick look at the questions, see if we have any questions related to access. All right, we had one question related about the organization code that's specific to the company or organization that the person works for. We can chat with you about any questions on getting the organization code from your staff.
One person is asking what CAR stands for. CAR is short for the Compliance Audit Report for your audit.
We have a question about how to change emails for getting the report sent to you. That's based off of who we have listed as primary contacts for the project. And if we update that in our system, then we can update how the report is sent out as well. There is a question about how to remove a staff person from DevCo. I'm going to hold on that for now. If we have time at the end, I can show how you remove a user in DevCo, but I want to stick to getting through everything for DevCo inspection. Receiving the CAR is based off of a combination of who is users in DevCo as well as who is listed as contacts on the project. And ultimately, the analyst can select which people it is sent to and which ones will be able to see it. All right, so we will take a look at the EHS form first from the reports page. Currently, the EHS form is not being used directly in DevCo inspection, but that will be coming soon. We're doing testing and a variety of things on it, but wanted to show it today since it will be used soon. So we can click on the report number here, and it'll open up another page. And this is what the EHS form will look like. You have there's 4 findings here, and they are organized by the building and then unit. We have a smoke detector violation, 3 smoke detector violations in total, and then one about the outlet covers for unit 615. On the left side of the screen, there is a navigation bar that allows you to jump to different areas of the page. So we can skip down to seeing that the signature is on here, and that'll be part of the features of the EHS form, that the analyst will have the ability to have someone on site sign directly on the tablet, as long as internet connection is available. There's also printing features on the panel on the left, and there's a change for the view. In this case, now each finding is listed across the page instead of columns. All right. If you're having issues viewing all of the pages of the report, you can adjust the zoom settings on the internet browser here, and I'll show you an example of what it could look like. So here, when we have the page shrunk to about half the screen, the whole page turns white, and then if you keep scrolling, you can start to see it at the bottom. But if we adjust the zoom settings, now we can see the report again.
And of course, if you see anything where you have a car and you're having issues opening it up, again, first, make sure that you're in Chrome first and foremost. And if you're still having issues, you can always put in a help desk ticket and we can help you through it.
If you find that you have to zoom out quite a lot, you should talk with your IT staff or someone responsible for managing the computers that you work with, because that could be an issue with the screen resolution. All right, so we will now add some responses to the findings that we have. We will start with the one for the outlet and switches. We click on Add Response with little plus sign, and then the envelope. So we can see the finding number that's listed that we just clicked on, and then there's the Add Documents feature. We will click on that, and now we click on the owner response, and we have down here where you can either drag a document or you can click on the browsing and select the document that you need. If you have additional documents, you can add more documents and click Done Adding Documents. And so now we can see the Send button, and we'll click that. And if we refresh the page, we can see that the response is now listed there that we just provided. So we'll add another response on one of the smoke detector findings. We'll click Add Response again, click on the envelope, and this time we'll actually add a response that is for all 3 of the smoke detector findings that we have. So this time we're going to also click Add Findings. And this has the list of all the findings that are on the EHS form, and you can hover over the little eye icon to see more details. So we want to mark that one because it's also smoke detector, and this one as well. We have all 3 of the smoke detector findings. We click Done Add Findings. And I'll click Add Documents. And then we'll click to browse. And we're going to click Done Adding Documents again. And we'll refresh the page again so that we can see what we've added. So now the finding that we just added is listed on each one of the smoke detector findings. This first one already had an additional response added to it previously. All right. I'm going to show more details on features when we go over to the compliance audit report, but I'm going to take a look at any questions we may have so far. All right. We had a great question about, are we not typing in any information for each item? Since all I was doing was adding a document, you can add any text that you want to provide explanation when you're adding a response for the finding. And I'll show an example of that when I look at one on the compliance audit report. And then we have another question with how the button is listed where it says owner response work order. I think the intent right now is that it's meant to cover any owner response, but wanted to highlight that it was meant for work orders also. But we can think about also having it list for file corrections as a separate option. So I'm going to close the EHS form. And I will click on the report for the car now. You will see projects listed here before the reports are actually ready. So if you click on the number and it's not ready, you'll have it pop up saying that the report has not been released yet. So now we have the compliance audit report. With this, you will have the letter from the analyst at the beginning of the document, and then it'll go into a summary of what was reviewed, as well as some basic details about the property. So we can see here that we have a summary of the findings for the site, the building, and the units. And similar to the EHS form, there are ways that you can navigate on the left. So you can click to just the inspected units on the left, or you can also click on the unit when you're looking at the summarized information. And with this summary, you can see with the little green check boxes or check marks that those are areas where there weren't any findings. And then the black circle has a number in it, and that's listing how many findings there were for that area. So I clicked on one of the units, and so now it brought me to just that unit's finding. And in this case, it's a file response or a file finding. And we'll go through it on the adding a response on the car. So we'll click the envelope again. And we'll click add documents. And then I'll click done adding documents. And I can add any additional text that I would like into the message box. Sorry, having typing issues. So just making a comment about the document includes all of the missing paperwork. So you can specify any sort of information that you would want. Now I'll click send on this one. And to look at more examples of what we have in the car here, I'm going to remove the findings filter. You'll need to do this if you use the quick links to any of the units or buildings that are listed in the summary area. Now we can see the whole list of findings again. For the purposes of today, many of these findings already have responses listed on them so that you could see what that would look like. And also, several of these have already been marked as resolved. So we have this parking lot finding here that's listed as uncorrected. So that's one that still has not been approved by the auditor as having a response that is complete. But the one here for the roof is already marked resolved, and it includes the date that it was resolved. each of the findings that are listed will have the descriptions that are part of the UPCS definitions, and it'll also list the levels, and there'll be any comments that the auditor may have made. So on this parking lot one, it says where the damage was located at in the parking lot. And because we also marked the issues resolved from the EHS form, that'll already show up, or that we had added documents for the EHS, that'll show up here as well. I'll scroll back up to the top to go to one of those units. We'll go to unit 615. So there were additional findings on unit 615. So we can see the work order that was added from the EHS form is listed here also. If the analyst has any additional questions or follow-ups, they will send a communication in DevCo inspection related to a finding, and you can see that displayed in the communications tab. So I have an example of that here. Where it lists specifically the finding and that there was additional question on it. And the note from the auditor is just that the documentation was unclear and that to provide additional information. All right, I will check again if there's any questions, and then we'll move on to printing and what the report area will look like when it's closed. All right, we have a question from Mandy about the communications tab, saying that the report is ready, but the report doesn't show up on the report tab. We will have to look into that particular case. If you could send a question into the DevCo help desk, we will follow up on that more, but that should not be happening. We have a question about if findings are fixed during the inspection, can the EHS be signed and cleared that same day? Yes, that is possible. And in fact, depending on when the corrections are marked off as being resolved, you could be signing the EHS with everything already marked resolved on it, depending on how quickly things were completed. And likewise, when a report's sent out, you would already see those EHSs are resolved once the EHS form is fully used. All right, we had a good question about where do you find the unit number? The unit number and the bin are included in the black bar on the report. And as you're using DevCo inspection, you can figure out if this view where it shows each finding across the whole page works best for you, or if it works better to have the findings listed side by side to each other. it can potentially be a little easier to see that all three of these findings are under that unit when they're side by side. We have another question about who the reports will be available to, whether it'll be on-site managers or just supervisors. That depends on what contacts and users we have in DevCo, as well as how your organization wants to have things set up. Some organizations have things just go to the supervisors, others are wanting it to go to all of the staff that's involved with the project. If you have photos that you're trying to include, they would need to be in the document. I have another question related to the upload and how big of a file it could be. And 1 gig is the current limit roughly. We have a question about the file audit findings and whether something has to be attached or if there can be a written explanation. That would really depend on what the file finding is. If there is a simple explanation to it, but I think in many cases there will be some sort of documentation that is needed to back up the response that's given. Physical findings should have work orders that are associated with them. We had a question about how to tell if a file finding is related to a resort or initial certification. That would come down to the notes that the auditor is providing with the file finding. For this test example, my notes were pretty simple, so I didn't have as good of an explanation as they would. When you're sending messages in DevCo inspection, it is set up that you would be sending it to the lead auditor. I have a question about how long the document history will be available for the car, and it'll be with the car for the full duration that the car is in DevCo inspection. I didn't get into it yet, but at some point we might archive the audits, but we would always be able to pull them back up if there was a need to. We have a great question on if responses can be added as they are done, or if everything has to be entered at one time. They can be done either way, but it's probably beneficial to do them as you're finishing them. And that'll potentially make it easier for the auditor to clear them as well. I think we have a question on what EHS stands for. That's exigent health and safety. It is all of the findings that need a response within 24 hours. We have a question on what can be seen on the communications tab, if it's for everyone that has access to the property or if it's what you have as a user. With the communications tab, you'll see what you're sending and what you're receiving from the auditor only, but from the car or the EHS, you'll see any responses that anybody involved with the property puts on it. I think I've covered most of the questions that we have so far. There's some that were similar to what I already answered. All right, so to print the car or the EHS form, I'll go back up to the top. You have a print icon on the toolbar banner that's on the left that you can use, or you can click print from the top of the page. And this is what the print view will look like. With the print view, it automatically organizes the findings so that they go across the page. We found that it makes it easier to print off that way, that there doesn't end up being a bunch of white space on some of the pages. And with the current setup of the print view, it is only showing the findings and information that the auditor provided initially with the report. We do not see any of the corrections and responses that have been submitted. With the printing functions, you'll need to make sure that your print setup is set to default margins and to default scale. Otherwise, it can cause issues with what it'll look like once it's printed. And when the report is actually closed out entirely by the auditor, the status that you have on the reports page will be switched from viewed by PM, which is property manager. That means that you have been in the report and seen it. It'll switch from that status to all items resolved. And also on pages like the compliance audit report, where you have buildings and you can see this one is uncorrected. Once all the findings are corrected, this will switch to saying corrected and it won't be flashing red anymore. Some tips for DevCo inspections while you're using things is, one, to make sure that you can check out our guide that we have. It is located on our DevCo resources page under DevCo inspection. There's a quick reference guide there. It's about 10 pages long right now, and at the end of it has tips, but it covers a summary of what we had today, and we'll be continuing to update it and add more information to it as we use DevCo inspection more. But the tips and reminders for using DevCo inspection: always use Google Chrome for your access. If you have a link from an email that is no longer working, you can log in directly through DevCo by going to the apps and then DevCo inspection. If you're having a problem finding a property listed in the report, we'll go over the report. You can always set the filter status to view all reports, and you can also filter by particular project if you have a bunch of properties listed. If you're having a problem finding, sorry, just covered that. If you're having issues viewing all the pages on the report, you can adjust the zoom settings on the browser. And that's the 3 little circles there, and you have your zoom to adjust. If you have a response that applies to more than one unit or finding, you can click Add Response and then click Add Finding. So again, that's click Add Response and then click on the envelope. And then if you're doing a response for more than one finding, click Add Finding and select the findings that you need. And the last tip is for those users that might be using a virtual desktop, such as Citrix. You can contact the OHFA DevCo Help Desk about an alternative login method. So we'll do one last look at the questions. We had a good question on when the findings have been satisfied, will you receive a closeout letter? Yes, you will be still receiving a closeout letter.
There is a question about the time frame that you'll receive a car from the time that a audit was completed. As of right now, there is a bit of a delay. We've had a few challenges in getting those out. I think most of that has been resolved, so hopefully they'll be going out a little faster now. But it definitely is a little different than in the years past, you know, just in getting this working and functioning really well. But they should start going out a little bit faster here soon.
We have a question on it. Someone that is on site can have access to just the EHS only and not the car. You would end up having access to both. It is possible that a notification may only be sent for one of them to that person, though. They have a question on, will a notice of the upcoming inspection show up in DevCo? Currently, the notice that you would receive is no more than 15 days. So you would have a very limited time frame that you would see an upcoming inspection come, and that's due to the IRS requirements that changed in February. We had a question about the responses and who is listed for it to be sent to. It currently only will send responses to the lead analyst, so you should typically only see one person listed there. Depending on the type of findings that you may have or for preparation for the review, you still need to use DevCo compliance to enter any information related to the tenants or households that you have at your property. So if you need to correct a rent update, you'll need to do that in DevCo compliance. Or if you have other types of information that you need to add, like marking that what your home units are. We have a question about what documentation the property manager will receive on the day of the inspection. The EHS form is currently the only document that will be received on the day of the inspection. We have a question on if all the findings are resolved and accepted by OHFA, if the report will still display, and currently it'll still display in DevCo inspection after everything is resolved. The status will change to show that it is resolved, and using the filters, you can filter out to just the ones that still need to be worked on. All right, we have time, I think, for like one or two more questions to get answered. We have one that can work orders for EHS findings still be given to the auditor before they leave the property? Yes, currently they can, but you will inevitably still have to upload the documents into DevCo inspection to show that the response was given. And also, depending on if there is internet connection, you may potentially have to do that anyway, where you're giving it to them in person, and then it can be uploaded later. Rent updates in DevCo should be completed as they're occurring. We have a question related to whether when rent updates need to be added before an inspection is occurring.
And Shiloh, if you would, please put a DevCo help desk ticket in for your question, and we'll make sure that gets taken care of.
All right, I would like to thank everyone for attending the webinar today. And we will be posting this webinar on the website after we've reviewed it so that it's available for everyone. All right, and we had one final thing to mention, that the communications area that we've been talking about today is for DevCo inspection. There is a message board feature in DevCo compliance, but that has very limited use and only really shows messages that are needed for long term instead of things that need your immediate attention. All right, again, thank you everyone for joining in today.